Last night I had a message on my answering machine from my daughter Brenda, who had just taken some youngsters up to Grand Canyon to do a little hiking. And again, words don't convey these things, but what she saw was 6 giant condors flying in formation. She said it was unbelievable. I don't know the exact wing stretch of a condor. It's huge, but I don't know whether it's 10 feet or more than that or 20 feet or something. And of course, when we talk about these things, it doesn't convey a thing. But it made me think of people that come in and say that life is meaningless. See? It doesn't have to be condors. It could be anything. It could be a few leaves just blowing across the sidewalk. It could be a piece of art. It could be a piece of junk. It could be anything. But when we're ready to see, to some degree anyway, there it is. So what I want to talk about today is something that in our very well-meaning attempts, all of us, teachers, monitors, everyone, we say too much. And some of what we say is immensely useful, but it's a lot. So what I want to emphasize today is, for those who can absorb it, the utter simplicity of practice. It's really the simplest thing in the world. The problem, of course, is we don't want to do it. That's whatever it is. But, you know, in old-time Zen training, nobody explained anything to anybody. And they figured the ones that come through this eventually, well, that's fine. If you don't come through it, that's also fine. Now, for some reason, with Americans, we feel we have to say a lot. And we do. And I think for the most part it's helpful. But sometimes I like to just return to what that little basic thing is we have to do. Because that's what you're here to learn. Now, whether you do it or not, that's another matter. What are you thinking? Whatever you're thinking, whatever mental material there is, note it and return to the silence. It's as simple as that. Whatever you're thinking, unless it's going to maybe kill you in the next 3 minutes, abandon it and return to the silence. Now, by silence, I don't mean no sound. I mean just sitting here. And it could be anything will occur in that silence. Traffic, or whatever that is. The sensations in our bodies. The sound of the refrigerator. That's what I mean by silence. It's all you really have to know. I didn't say to suppress what goes on in your mind. Just note it. There's nothing good or bad about it. And return to the silence. How many times? Now, when a human being does this, and believe me, obstinacy and persistence are important characteristics for a Zen student. Stubbornness, maybe. So you have to be willing to do this before you know what you're doing. Americans don't like to do things if they can't see exactly what they're getting out of it. You get nothing out of it. At least not for a while. At first, you know, it's okay, I'll do this. But now it's 5 hours later, and what? And this is what develops in a maturing practice, that ability to do that. Not only to do it, but to do it rapidly, effectively. By that I mean you can stay there for a while. You can choose how long to stay. What it feels like to a human being who's practicing, and believe me, I know this, is utter boredom. I don't want to do it. Can't think of anything sillier. I want something dramatic. I want to understand things. See, to be in that silence is non-dual. Exactly the thing that as human beings we at all costs want to avoid. There's no duality. I'm not present. There's no me. It's either frightening to us, or it's repellent to us, or it's something. We don't want to do it. Or we'll do it a little bit. Yeah, I think I experienced something last week, Joko. Yeah. How long did it last? Well, 10 seconds, okay? That's fine. But then there should be another 10 seconds, and another 10 seconds, and So, this is a practice of dying to the self. We're caught in what the little self wants, what it wants from the outside world. It projects onto everything. It identifies with everything. See, it doesn't make us happy, but we feel then that we exist. To do the practice I'm talking about is what? And I'll be honest, in the first years of practice, we do it some, then we read a few Zen books here and there. You know. Then we do it a little bit. Then we get another bright idea. Or we hear the Dalai Lama's coming to town. That'll do it. And I like the Dalai Lama. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Something's going to do it, see? What did she say? Just to sit here? Well, I'm being funny about it. See, it's not funny at all. And then as our practice does mature to some degree, there's in a way a great loneliness that sets in. See? The practice hasn't advanced to the point where the self is strongly eroded, maybe somewhat, and it just feels terrible. And then we get busy with something dramatic, usually. We fall in love, or we fall out of love, or we have some great ideas about something. We do all sorts of things. What did Christ do? 49 days in the desert? This is what they're talking about. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean 49. It could be 12,002. The desert, see. It looks like the desert to my little self. Hour after hour. I mean, I have to listen to the traffic again? Just the silence. It's the death of the little self we're working on, but we like our little self. This doesn't appeal to us. See, it would greatly reduce the size of sessions if anybody believed me, but they think, well, she's not telling the whole truth. I'll go again and see what it is. I'm telling the whole truth. Mm-hmm. Now, over time, the teachers here outline all sorts of things that are useful, and they should be practiced with. But always keep in mind, those are the practices of the little self. We have to do them with great diligence. But a lot of those practices are more for daily life use. In sitting, keep it simple. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to sit and worry about that core belief that doesn't go away. No. See your thoughts, and return to the silence. See, the thoughts will come up. They will come up. It's not good or bad that they come up. Thoughts are very useful when they're properly used. But we're doing something that isn't just getting the day's work done. It's that too. This is Dullsville. And then the pain begins. Simple, utterly, and terribly simple. See, if we're in love, who wouldn't rather think about that? And we will. It's not good or bad. But over time, if you've been doing enough of this, something begins to happen. Those things are not as compelling as they used to be. I'm not saying not to love. That's a different ballgame. You don't ever love until you've done a lot of this. You may be a very kind, a very nice, a very wonderful person, but love is something else. We're trying so hard to do our image of the nice person. And there's a saying, I don't know who said it, but something like, love and do what thou willst. Does it mean to do any old thing? It means that when you love, you will do that which is beneficial. Without any effort at all. Compassion. Same thing. Simple, huh? So I hope everybody's got it. So check in again at about 5 o'clock this afternoon. Be a good time. And even better, it's 9:30 at night.
Is your practice affected differently by what time of day you're practicing?
Sure. Everything affects everything, so.
How?
But it doesn't mean it's a good time to practice, except from the standpoint of when you have children. You know, usually we get up before the children do. That's common sense. Okay? Or if you have a house where the phone rings every few minutes, those things affect practice more importantly. But if you're definitely a morning person or an evening person, you'll find your way. None of those things are basic. You just find your way, do the best you can. Okay? Anyone else?
Joko, sometimes it seems that there's so many thoughts on my mind that I could pick one or know what's really on my mind.
Well, we all have that, or we're overwhelmed sometimes by emotions, things like that. And those are the times to use the different practices that are sometimes brought up here. You see what I mean? But even so, in the middle of that, I think stubborn's a really good word. You see what I mean? If we're stubborn enough, somehow we find our way through that. Maybe you don't even hardly know you're doing it, but you'll fight your way back to something once in a while. And very slowly over the years, it gets easier and easier and easier, because there's something about this which is compelling. That's your true self that's calling, and it's powerful. But I don't think there's anybody who doesn't get completely sidetracked for many years. That's just the nature of,
What instruction would you give along these lines for perhaps the students who like the silence and may be attached to it and may have very little awareness of the patterns of ego-centric thinking and maybe
I don't think they're in the
away?
silence. I don't think they're in the silence. The silence isn't anything. It's not a blissing out into sort of a dreamy half state. That's not it at all. It's perfectly alert. It's just being here. It's as though all of you, as you are right now, just shut your eyes. That's it. It's not something else.
Didn't you one time say God is the silence?
Sure, God is everything here, too. This is the manifestation of God, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. See, when we go off into our personally centered thinking, we aren't really aware of all this. Where are we? We're off somewhere else. Private little home. Of course, this is God. Everything here. Perfect. Perfect in being as it is.
I think what you're saying, in other words, I could say the same thing as return to the silence is presence.
Uh-huh. Being present.
Because I've been in silence. I find quiet very nourishing.
No, but it doesn't, that's not what I mean by it. I'm talking about the silence. Somebody said the silence of God, to use a Western word, which is just, it doesn't necessarily mean just nature. It can be anything that's going on. But it's different. A belief system is what's going on with me. But the big God goes on for all of us. It's just a commonly shared thing, because we're all that. We are that. Yeah.
So you're saying that the silence is available like in the middle of a war?
That's all there is. That's all there is. But we're ordinarily busy because we like to think about ourselves and our own personal dramas. That makes sense? There's nothing but silence. By that I mean just the world as it is. See, talking to a friend is silence. Get it? Yeah? Yeah. We wouldn't have to use that word, but I'm trying, when I say experiencing, people think it's something different than just being alive. See? Just absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Would part of the definition be that it's the moment as it is, to the extent that it's not obscured by the self-obsessed filter, or that hasn't hijacked the moment?
Yeah. But it requires a lot of practice, not just once in a while. And sometimes we can get so enamored of our practice little things we get into that we forget that that's still preliminary to sitting in the silence. And sitting in the silence can mean sitting at a desk and doing your income tax too. Just doing that.